Do you know the 7 basic folds? Let's go over them. How about the pipe fold and the drop fold? The pipe fold is your building block. It's as basic as it gets. It's a cylinder, but make sure that you remember to showcase the contours of your cylinder. Now, every fold is going to be looking at points of tension. Now, a pipe fold, at its basic, if you have a straight, consistent point of tension like a curtain rod, is just going to be a bunch of cylinders going down. And your end caps are going to show the curves going down and up, allowing you to have the illusion of 3D. Now, what happens if you want to show some variation and compress that fabric? Well, it's easy. If you have your point of tension, just make sure that your cylinders are smaller and closer together, and then the wider they are, the looser it is. So remember, the narrow ones are tighter, the larger ones are looser. Now, what happens when you want to do a pipe fold on a curved point of tension, say like a figure, like maybe a dress? It's really not that different. You just follow along with the curve of the figure, do your cylinders, but make sure that the bottom of your fabric and your caps follow along with the curved point of tension. Now, the drop fold is really just a super fancy pipe fold, but your point of tension is 1, and gravity is pulling all of your cylinders down and out to make triangular cylinders. At its very base, really not that fancy. However, whenever you're doing a drop fold, you're more than likely going to make sure that it's asymmetrical, because it's just going to be more visually interesting. So you just continue your cylinders, and you continue the fabric behind, throwing all the dimension at the viewer so they can see the depth that's coming out from your drops. So think of a towel on a towel rack or a towel hook. Now, what happens if you have a drop on a figure? You're most notably going to see this on a knee or any point of like elbow, shoulder, where you're going to have all the fabric coming down from one point of tension. And so it follows the same rule. You're just draping it on a figure as opposed to on, a static hook. In the end, it's the same principles. You just follow it, render it, make sure you understand the contour, and that's that. The diaper fold and the half lock. Let's go. The diaper fold is not really that complicated. It's basically 2 points of tension and having some sort of fabric draped between it. Now, the great thing is that there's going to be some slack, so you just follow that contour of the slack line, and then you let it gradually get deeper as it goes down until the end of the fabric. What this does is it creates a lot of volume, which is really fun. Adds to a lot of the depth, but you got to remember the contours, and you have to remember that all of your lines are going to be radiating out from those 2 tension points. As you can see, the profile creates lots and lots of volume. Now, when you want to create really tight diaper folds, you need to have tension points far away from each other, and it's going to create really, really short, shallow wrinkles. They will get gradually larger, but if you want really big, loose ones, you need to create your tension points a lot closer together. And this will create big variations between how tight your fabric is. Now, the half lock is when your wrinkles or your folds are only half of your object and they're locked up. So the tension point is actually going to be the opposite side of the folds, where it's going to be really smooth, and the bend is where all of your wrinkles are, and the wrinkles will radiate out from that bend. You're going to find a lot of bubbling because the fabric is overlapping itself, which is really a fun little visual marker. So here on a knee, your bend is where all of your wrinkles will radiate out from, and you just continue to follow that, and like we did with the drop fold, it goes to the front. So here's an arm, same thing. It's going to be overlapping, so you finish the lower part of the arm, and then you have the wrinkles going from it. Now, what's really, really fascinating that you need to remember is that fabric plays a big part of this. So if you have really thin fabric, your wrinkles in a half lock are going to be very thin and really shallow. Not a lot of contour with them at all. However, you have a really thick fabric, you're going to have a lot of chunky wrinkles, and it's going to overlap. It's really visually interesting, but always remember the fabric you're using. Right now, we're going to do the spiral, the zigzag, and the inert folds. Let's go. So the spiral fold is when you have 2 points of tension that are rotating away from each other, creating folds that showcase the object's contour. Now, the folds will always radiate away from the rotating point of tension. Here, I'm showcasing when you have an arm, you're going to have 2 points of tension. I'm going to have my wrist and then my shoulder/elbow upper arm. And so if I'm going to rotate from the wrist, all of my spiral folds are going to radiate away from my wrist to the shoulder. So it's the 2 points pointing to each other, but the tightest one is going to be at the wrist, at the point of origin, where my point of tension is. The same thing can happen on a torso. So if my points of tension are the waist and the shoulders, my waist is going to be my main point of tension. So all of my spirals are going to be going from that waist to that shoulder. The zigzag is pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's zigging and zagging. It's any compression of the fabric on any sort of cylinder. So an arm, a leg, but you can do something known as the XYZ pattern just as a shorthand to kind of understand the progression of how tight these spirals need to be to show how compressed it is. So you've got an X on the top, a Y, a Z. So if I have a sleeve right here, it's relaxed, it's fine. But as I move it upwards, you're going to have the compression happen. And so wherever it's the tightest is going to be the most compressed. That's going to be my Z area. And then it's going to go up to the Y, the X. But your point of origin will always be the tightest grouping. Same with pant legs. Like right towards the ankle and the shoe is going to be your tightest, and it's going to get a little bit looser as it goes up towards the top. Remember, smaller equals tighter, and the bigger is looser. Now the inert fold is just dead fabric. It's not really a fold, it's sort of a combination of all the folds. Right here I'm having a zigzag and a drop, and you got a diaper. Basically, you just need to understand that they all combine at some point. It's a fold combo, but the number one thing to just remember is that the object underneath will always dictate your folds.